What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Common Sense, the podcast. Glad to have you all here with us. Sorry for the delay. We had some issues to work around, and
it was my fault as usual.
Well, there you have it. I was going to let him slide today, but you know. Anyways, we're happy to be here, and I'm excited for this show because I didn't think I was actually going to be able to talk him into doing it.
You tried and finally convinced me, so.
Yeah, so you guys, so you don't know, this is James Giddens with Sherwin Williams. What's up, man?
Garrett, how's it going, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good.
Hey, pull that in closer to you. Get it about like mine is.
All right,
Yeah.
how about that?
There
better?
you go.
All right.
Now you're rocking.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you, man. So we're going to start this off right away. So this guy's known around Element as Pops. You want to tell why everybody calls you Pops?
You want to tell it or you want me to?
It don't matter to me.
So, God, years ago.
We always start this with, I'm 45. How old are you?
49.
Yeah, all right. There you go.
So years ago, wasn't too long after you went to work for Element, you had family coming into town and needed Rangers tickets.
Yes.
And came to me as a supplier looking to see if we could hook you up with some tickets, and went to my boss to get approval. And since you weren't quite as high on the ladder at Element as you are today, we worked out a deal where I would pay for half of them and you take the other half.
Yeah.
And we walked up to the grandstand to buy the tickets, and when we were talking to the ticket guy, he made a comment, something to the effect of, when I started to pay, he's like, yeah, I still have to pay for my kids too. So thought Garrett was my son, so that did not sit well with me, but.
It was an epic moment, let me tell you. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've pretty much called him Pops ever since.
I've been Pops ever since.
Well, tell everybody a little bit about like where you grew up, where you started out and everything.
Oh, so born and raised in Texas, grew up in Houston, moved from there to East Texas when I was in high school, did the college route for a couple of semesters, and went to work for Sherwin Williams 3 days after I graduated high school. I got a phone call from the assistant manager. I knew his family, and he asked me if I wanted a summer job, and it beat mopping floors and washing dishes, which was what I was doing at the time. And so I said, sure, let's go. So I went to work part-time at Sherwin Williams and did a semester and a half at a community college there in Palestine, Texas, and realized that being an ag teacher really wasn't for me, and decided to stay with Sherwin for the rest of my life. So,
well, what kind of family did you grow up in?
So I'm the youngest of six. I've got
youngest of six. Damn, I didn't even know that.
My dad has 2 kids from a previous marriage, and then 4 of us. So youngest of 6, 3 boys, 2 girls. Great family. You know, we were tight, still tight. You know, typical. My older brother could whip the shit out of me if he wanted to, but if anybody else whipped me, there were 6 of them coming down the block after him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, moved to East Texas when I was in high school. My parents bought a 50-acre place out in East Texas, and moved to the woods and started hunting and fishing, and turned into a true redneck, I guess, for the majority of my teenage years, and hadn't really grown out of it since.
Yeah, I know. You get to go on like the coolest hunts like all the time. Not to mention Sherwin Williams does a lot of really cool hunts.
I get to go on them. I don't necessarily get to hunt while I'm there.
Well, you get to hunt on your own places and stuff. I mean, like you always like, this guy's got axes in his freezer and everything else.
I'm blessed. My wife's sister and her husband own a ranch outside of Kerrville in the hill country, and they give me the benefit of letting me and the kids come up pretty much anytime we want, and we don't shoot trophies. We shoot culls and management and does and things like that. And I started hunting in East Texas, where you were lucky if you saw a deer with an antler. So what they call cull bucks are trophies to me. So it's a good gig.
Yeah. So 31 years at Sherwin Williams.
Next month will be 31 years.
Dude, that's incredible, because like you just don't see that much anymore.
It's
I mean, with the same company, 31 years.
You know, it's been a blessing. It's we all have challenging times and days that we don't want to do it, but Sherwin Williams has been great to me. I've been in the multifamily side of it for 25 years. I've joked with my bosses over the last decade that when they finally get tired of me or fire me or whatever the case is, I'm going to go find another gig in multifamily. It's where I belong. It's what I do.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
So
bro.
no, I've got about 6 years left in me, I think. And like I said, I love what I do. The role I'm in now is the greatest position I've ever had. And
Tell us a little bit about that.
so I work on our national account side. I'm what's called a regional account executive. I cover 4 states. I cover all of North Texas, all of Oklahoma, Arkansas, up into Springfield, Missouri. And I work with our owner-operator clients that own or manage 10,000 units, that 2,000 to 10,000 unit mark. So I'm not working with the really big guys that I worked with in the past as a rep. I'm working with the mid-level clients, building relationships and putting agreements together for those guys. And on a national footprint, they may have properties from California to Florida. And then I help tie everything together from a top-down effect to make sure that we have consistency across all of their sites, all of their portfolios, and they're able to capitalize on their purchasing power by combining all of that.
Awesome. Well, one of the reasons why, you guys, that I really wanted to have James on here, and I thought this would be really good for y'all, especially right before TAA. I mean, we're all going to be, anybody in the multifamily industry here in Texas is all going to be down at TAA next week. It's in Houston. That's the Texas Apartment Association, for any of you that don't know what that is. And it's the largest trade show we do in the industry each year. It rotates between Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Houston. This year happens to be Houston. But I wanted to bring James on here, to tell him thank you. And I think this is going to be a great angle for you guys to hear and to really dive into how he approaches this and has approached this over the years, because I owe the utmost gratitude and thanks to this man, because really he is the person that really helped me take my sales career to the next level. James never once, even when I was just an estimator, treated me as I was just an estimator. I mean, you just heard him say, like, I wasn't quite high enough on the food chain, but I needed some tickets, and he was still finding ways to help me out. But it goes way deeper than that. You know, James kind of just mentored me and guided me along on how to build relationships in multifamily, because obviously he'd been doing it a lot longer than I had when I came into the game. You know, and I was transitioning, learning how to sell in multifamily after I got out of the insurance world and figured out how to estimate for multifamily. And you were crucial in helping me really get my career going, because you and I made some agreements early on that, you know, we would help each other and, you know, make introductions, and that, you know, if there was an opportunity that you could help me to get to bid something, you would make those introductions. And you know, it worked out great for both of us.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you also taught me the importance of not only being involved in the associations, but how to be involved.
Right.
And that was, to me, that was key. Like, that was everything I needed as a young sales guy from a vendor partner, you know, not even somebody from Element. This was a vendor relationship. So, dude, thank you.
Oh,
first and foremost.
Kind words, brother. Kind words. You know, I remember when we first started working together, you were transitioning from that estimate, trying to get into the sales, and, you know, Element was gracious enough to throw you a couple of bones and give you some time to go out and sell. But in the multifamily world, for those of you who are in it, it's a tough nut to crack if you don't have the relationships. And to see you come in and the energy and the attitude that you had when you were at that age, it was phenomenal to see, and it was fun to be a part of, really, to watch you grow and to watch you develop your own style and salesmanship in what you do. And for me, I've always looked at it at 2 things when we come to sales. Is one, I learned from Sherwin, one I learned from my dad. From the Sherwin side, it's our mantra going back. Sherwin's a 165 plus year old company, and Henry Sherwin's words were, do what you say you'll do. Do what you say you'll do. When you do that, everything falls into place. And we had this conversation back when that happened. Was I was happy to make introductions, happy to introduce you to some of the clients that I worked with, but you got to follow through. You got to do what you say you will do, because now it's not just you and your company's name on the line. Now it's my name on the line as well.
Absolutely.
And that's important to me. And I can tell you, all the leads, all the relationships that I introduced you to, you never let me down on any of them. You may not have gotten every job that we looked at, but you walked away building a relationship with somebody, and that's the most important part.
Absolutely.
And then for me, the second part is what my dad taught me, because he was in sales on the petroleum and chemical side, was friends buy from friends. And that's how I've treated my entire career. I'm not your typical salesperson. I'm not your typical corporate person. I don't use $3 words. I don't use 5 words when 2 will do. I build relationships, and I want you to trust me, and I want you to buy from me because you're comfortable with me. And because you know at the end of the day that I'm going to stand behind my product, I'm going to stand behind my word of what I said. And that's how I've treated my entire career.
And you've been like that from day one. And just so you guys know, like, James was our rep, like our dedicated rep when I started out.
Yeah.
And he's obviously had a couple other positions that he's been a part of with Sherwin since then.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, I could pick up the phone at any point in time and be like, James, I'm still having a problem getting this, or I've got a problem with this or that. And man, he doesn't hesitate. He always did what he said he would do. He took care of it, even if it wasn't his thing to take care of.
And that's what we do, especially in our industry. You know, I've worked in a lot of markets, you know, growing up in Sherwin, and I love all of them. But when you look at the multifamily industry, it is really more about relationship than it is in any other market that I've ever worked in. It's a really big family, but it's a really tight-knit family. Nobody gets out of the multifamily industry. And we joke about it all the time within the associations and within our peer groups when we look at it. As I joke around with it all the time. Darla Doyle, who used to work for AATC back years ago,
Yeah.
you know, when she invited me to be on my first committee, then when the committee was over, I was, you know, I thought, okay, that's great. Well, no, I was locked in and I couldn't go anywhere. I was pretty much chained. And she used the words, it's like a gang. It's blood in and blood out. And realistically, that's what it's like. And so when we look at that, everybody knows everybody. So your name and your word mean everything in this industry. And if you can't stand behind that, you're not going to succeed and you're not going to do well. There's a lot of competitors that I have. There's a lot of competitors. You have a lot of great ones. We know all of them. We work with all of them. But in our industry, we can see where you and one of your competitors come together at an event for the association, and it's not hostile. It's not challenging. You're friends. You know, you're at the event. You may have a drink together, have some casual conversation, laugh and joke. And then on Monday you go back to work and you're trying to get the job, and there's some great ones out there. And that's really one of the things I love about this industry.
Yeah, I mean, and I think everybody that follows my show knows that. I mean, I've had competitors on here.
That's awesome.
Talking with you guys. And I mean, these guys are my friends, you know, like, and I've said this before too, like, there are competitors that I respect and there's ones that I don't. Like, I mean,
sure.
But it doesn't mean that it has to be hostile or that we can't, you know, be in the same room or, you know, because at the end of the day, like we've been talking about, it's the relationship that counts. Absolutely. And almost every project has a minimum of 3 bidders. You know who the favorites are, and you know if it's you're just being another bid or if you're, you know, they're just keeping you there until somebody messes up. And then that's your opportunity.
That's right. But you got to be ready to capitalize on those opportunities when they come.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing, too, like we talked about, I mean, it took me 3 years of getting my foot in the door, even with somebody like James that I was aligned with and that was assisting me, because, yes, it is a big industry, and yet it's really small and tight-knit as well. So people want to see, especially on the GC side, that you're going to be there and that you're not going anywhere and you're not one of the people that is just going to hop around at every opportunity you get within the industry, and that you're going to stand behind what you say you're going to do, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and that you're not ever going to leave them hanging.
Right. And you can't focus in your role or in your projects. You can't solely focus on the large projects. You know, everybody wants those 100-building rehabs, but you're not going to get them with a new client just because you're Element and you're Garrett and you've done it before.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to go replace those 3 stair treads.
Absolutely.
You know, for that new client, you've got to be willing to stand behind that and go do it and do it on time and under budget and efficiently and all the things that you're doing on your large projects to be able to work your way into those larger projects with new clients. And now when you build that client base, now that you know you've got that relationship and you're that one that they're looking for, and they're going to call you every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny because, like we said, people do move around and change, especially as far as our clients, because properties not only change ownership, they change management a lot, and depending on what side of that you're on, that changes where you're at and where you go, and you may jump to another company because your company lost that portfolio or gained a portfolio, or there's a lot of different scenarios there. But in that, you have to treat everybody the same. I mean, whether it's the maintenance guy, the leasing agent, the porter, I mean, these people all continue to move up and stay within the industry.
Absolutely. And I preach that to our reps that work for us in the multifamily side that are coming up and young and growing in the community and in the business is, our reps are out there every day knocking on the individual office doors of the properties trying to gain their business at the local level. And you can't ignore that leasing agent, because not only is she the gatekeeper of the person that you want to talk to, 5 years from now, there's a good chance she's going to be a regional or an asset manager. And I promise you, they will remember.
Absolutely.
And I've got clients that I've worked with for so long that they were leasing agents and assistant managers on site when I was a rep. And now they're in those executive positions, and they may change roles. They may go from one company to another, but I'm one of the first phone calls that they make when they find out, hey, we're not using you as a supplier. I need you to come fix that. Let's sit down and have a meeting so we can get it transferred over.
I'm interested to see how you would look at this, because I know this was a big learning curve for me in the sales world as well. And it's still something I have to work on, and and so a lot of times it's just the approach or how you're doing it, but there's going to be problems in construction.
Absolutely.
There's problems in paint. Whether it's the plants all blew up in the freeze, or we have a shortage of this raw material, or, we have an actual manufacturing issue here, or was it an installation issue? We have all these things.
Sure.
And the client is kind of multifaceted for us. You're not just dealing with the owner or just dealing with the management person or people, because if you're working on a property, that means there's a manager involved, an assistant manager, a maintenance guy, then there's their regional manager, then there's the maintenance director or the construction coordinator.
And you've got to make them all happy.
And the owner. So, I mean, that's a minimum of 6 people right there. And if you have a problem, you've got to address how it's affecting each one of them.
Right.
And it's not their job, or it's not on them to understand why this is going wrong or why it's going bad. So you have to really make sure you're kind of educating in the right way and letting them know what's going on, what the problem is, what the solution is, and how you're going to do it.
Right.
Because you just made somebody's life hell, whether it was your fault or not, or intentional or not. It causes them problems. It's causing them stress in their job. And for that to not have a lingering effect and them now think you're the worst thing in the world, you've got to be able to address that and in the right way.
Right. And you're exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, if there's a problem on the job and it's not specifically owner or property related, nothing that the property itself caused, you've got to make every one of those folks that you just mentioned happy, because like you said, it does affect their job day in and day out. From the maintenance lead, if it's something as simple as tying up a building that they need to get to or they have access to, or if, even more importantly, the residents themselves, the people that are living there, that it's creating a discomfort or uncomfortable situation for them, guess who's hearing about it? The property manager at some point, but most likely the person that's going to hear about it first is the maintenance tech, because he's the one that's throughout the property all day long. So now he's not only catching it from his boss, he's catching it from the residents as well. And you've got to put yourself in his shoes of how it's affecting him and what is your solution to address that. From the property manager, if it's you've got a unit that's now tied up and it's not able to come open for lease, and it's already been committed to or whatever, you now have to treat that situation completely different than what you did with the maintenance guy, all the way up to the owner who's writing the check. And at the end of the day, you're costing them money. No matter what the issue is, that's the bottom line for them, is you've got unhappy residents and you're costing them money. And how do you address that? And my solution for it is, put yourself in each of those position shoes, like you said, and how it affects them. And then be completely and totally honest on where you're at and where you're coming from. Not, hey, it's an outside problem, that it's not me, it's a supplier. That may be the case. You want to be honest with them and let them know. But the answer is, from your shoes, is I'm working with that supplier. They're going to be on site tomorrow. We're meeting them here. So together we can come up and find a solution to resolve that issue.
How have you looked at and handled making the difficult phone call when there is a problem? Because I talk about this all the time, not to just don't send the text message and take the chicken shit way out. Don't just send the email instead of having to have the difficult conversation. And I think that's a crucial lesson for a lot of salespeople to learn, especially the younger generation, because they're so quick to just respond with a text or an emoji or a GIF or, just sending an email instead of picking up the phone and having the difficult conversation.
First of all, you've got to know your client. You've got to know your client and how they respond. But the three things that I look at when we have an issue is, one, don't ever put it off. It's kicking the can down the road. All it does is make things worse. So we want to address it as soon and as quick as we possibly can. Two, before you make that phone call, you want to have all your ducks in a row on what the information is, what the problem is, what the cause is, and most importantly, what the solution is. And if you don't have the solution yet, okay, that's fine. The third thing is, be 100% honest. This is where we're at. This is what we ran into, and this is how I'm working to get it addressed. And I've honestly found that if you can do those three things and do it with that phone call, or even if you can in person with the appropriate person, they understand that mistakes happen and problems happen on job sites. It's not about the problem, it's what you're doing to correct it. And if you can address it quickly, do it honestly, and have the solution in place, or at least have the knowledge of what the problem is and that you're working on a solution, the majority of the time, if you can do those things, you're going to retain that client at the end of the project.
Yeah, because I could think of at least two, when you were our rep, of jobs that really went south. Mm-hmm. And it took a combined effort from both of us to reel all that back in and to come together and come up with the solution that was going to work for everybody. And not let them think that either one of us was leaving them hanging or not fully addressing the issues that they were having with the job.
Right, and without getting into too many specifics, I'm pretty sure one of your ones you're thinking about is one over in Fort Worth.
That's the first one that came to mind.
And you're exactly right. We found the problem. You and I and your team addressed it locally between us to come up with what the solution was. And then we met with the ownership group and the management company to let them know what a clear and precise solution was and how we were going to handle it. We left emotion and everything else out of it. We had the end result from both of our teams was, customer, we're going to get you taken care of. And as far as I know we still are, but as far as I know, to this day, we're both still doing a large amount of business with that very client.
Yeah, that client's become a very close friend. Yep. And, we're making this sound like it was really easy. It was not.
It took months.
Some of these meetings were absolutely brutal and hard conversations, and it didn't start off going well.
Right.
Both of us were getting the business.
Yes, we were.
Late
night text messages.
24/7, and it was not fun. But cooler heads prevailed, and we were able to work through every bit of it. And at the end of the day, it may have cost the client some more time, but it didn't cost them any more money.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, they got what they paid for,
Yep.
and they were happy. And it still backed everything. They still had their warranties and everything intact. So again, it's how you address it, and that your word means something, and that you're communicating all of that.
And for me, one of the things that I look at, and I had this conversation with you as a contractor, I had the same conversation today with my owner management clients, is I don't want to sell you a gallon of paint. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to I want to build a partnership. I want to build a long-term partnership. And so you hit the nail exactly on the head when you said that they knew that we weren't leaving them out to dry, that we were there. We were a unified front going, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is finding a solution to the customer's problem.
Yeah, they were still mad. They were still pissed off. They were not happy sitting in this meeting, and they came in very aggressive. But at the end of the day, we had to put that aside and be able to cipher through all that,
and you have to. I mean,
and provide the solution.
We're all emotional people to a degree, and our clients definitely are as well. I mean, it's their money. And that, for me, my money, when I'm dealing with my personal money, I get pretty emotional about that as well.
Right.
And so you have to allow them to have that emotion, but you can't allow yourself to get into it, because our first inclination is to become defensive.
Yeah.
Is, okay, now you're questioning me, the situation, whatever. You have to set all of that aside.
Yeah.
And
Ego has to die in this.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Don't tell jokes at the inappropriate time. Let's make sure we get in there and handle it all.
I don't know anybody that's done that. What's up, Mr. Freeze? Good to have you back on here. Mr. Freeze would like to know how tariffs are affecting you guys right now.
So we're in conversations right now at the corporate level. The good thing with us specifically is that the lion's share of our products are made here within the U.S. So we're not expecting to see really any kind of tariff problems on our end from our coatings and our paint and coatings. When you look at some of the products we sell, spray equipment, things like that we don't manufacture, we buy from a manufacturer. We're in conversations with those guys as well. I think, nobody knows exactly where the tariffs are going to lay off right now, but from a coating standpoint.
And Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think where we're looking at this is like minerals and stuff that are used in the paints.
Everything that I've being told so far at our corporate level is that we're not expecting to see any major problems. And it kind of sounds like I'm kicking down the can down the road, but from what I've been told, more information to follow, but we're not overly concerned about it.
Right on. I mean, that's, as you guys know, in our industry, that's something we have to monitor pretty much daily right now.
Sure.
I mean, definitely weekly. There's no just getting a lot of times we would operate where, like, maybe with a lot of my suppliers, like I'll use lumber, for instance, I would get a quarterly price sheet.
Right.
Whereas since COVID, we've had to get like monthly pricing updates, or even there's been periods where it's every 2 weeks. That's where you see some variances where I've had to, sometimes we would say our bid's good for 30 days. Right now, I think it's at 14 days. Yeah. And that's not because we don't want to give you a longer term to make a decision or anything. It's just that there's that much fluctuation in the market that we can't guarantee those prices. And I think that's been a big wake-up call for a lot of people on the owner and management side, because they've been so used to, they do their budgets in the summer, early fall, that's slating projects, and, they've had to get used to like, well, yeah, we're going to have to tag on a factor here.
Right.
That because if this isn't going to start till Q1 or Q2 of next year, it's going to have to be repriced. Not that the scope's necessarily changing, but just
the
labor
cost
and materials. Like, you've got to reevaluate that stuff.
And we learned it in COVID, and immediately after COVID, we learned it with the raw material shortage because of the freeze, the freeze that we had here in Texas, that just decimated the raw material plants that are in South Texas. We as a company, just like everybody, we learned a lot from that, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. And let's make sure that, from our end, we're not utilizing raw material plants that are only in one part of the state or one part of the country. We've now spread our raw material purchases out across the country because of that. So now, if South Texas ever gets hit with a 14-day freeze again, hopefully by then I'll be deer hunting full time and not have to worry about it. But we learned that, and we pivoted and made the appropriate steps to where we're prepared for those kind of things in the future.
Hello, Mindy. Thank you for jumping on. Mindy's on here. Shit, come in and check
what's up,
you out.
Red?
Big Red's in the house. What's kind of shaped your sales strategy and how you look at things over the years? Like, where did that come from? I mean, are you a big reader? Do you go to a lot of things? I mean, I know you're not the most traditional.
I'm really not. I've read a number of sales, how to be the right salesman book. I've read some great ones. I've done some good ones through Sherwin with some training programs, and we've got some training programs that, for sales. But what I've always tried to do is I've tried to be me. No matter what it is, I've tried to be me. And I'll use this as an example. And for if there's anybody on here from Sherwin, they've probably heard me tell this, is the reason I decided to stay with Sherwin is, again, I was an 18-year-old kid, had no clue what a career at Sherwin Williams looked like. And I was working in a little East Texas store. We had a problem on a petroleum job that we were doing. We were working with an oil company. And we had a problem with a product, and we didn't know at the store level how to resolve it. So we had a rep come in from Tyler, Texas, to go look at the job and do it. Phenomenal, one of the smartest guys I've ever met in my life. But when he walked into the store I was at, I was a part-time, full-time employee. When I walked in, I tried to introduce myself, and he basically blew me off and walked into the office and was, "Where's your manager?" And when he left, it was the same thing. So I grabbed my manager and went, "Who is that guy? What does he do?" And told me that he was a sales rep. This is kind of the job. The first question I asked was, "Well, can you make decent money doing that?" And I said, "Yeah, you can make good money." And right then for me, it clicked. I went, pardon my French, I went, if that jackass can do it, I know I can do it. And, that evening I called my parents, told them I was dropping out of school and I was going to make a career out of Sherwin. And that's kind of how I've molded my entire career is, it's funny with him, we actually became good friends later on, and he didn't intentionally blow me off. He had a lot of problems going on and a lot of stress that you face as a sales rep in the field, and just didn't have time to talk to that 18-year-old kid. I get it. But for me, I've used that to mold me is when the times that I walk into a store now, I make sure that I walk in and I talk to every kid at the store. Not just the manager, not just the assistant manager, but I want to talk to the part-time kid because that kid is me. That was me 30 years ago. And who they are, and really just to tell them thank you, because without them, I don't have a job. I mean, the guys that are pushing the gallons, the guys and the folks that are pushing the gallons out the door at the store, they're the ones that keep me employed. They're the ones that are the team behind the scenes that do all of the work, all of the hard work. And so from a sales perspective, I've tried to mold myself after the mentors that I had, not only within the industry. Pat Bush, he's a longtime Sherwin guy, was a national account guy. He was my role model as me coming up as a rep, how he did things. And he did it on a personal level. Again, he wasn't the most polished. He wasn't, wearing the shirt and tie and three-piece suit to every event. But people bought from Pat because they believed in what he said. They knew that when he said it, it was going to get done. And that's what I've looked at. We, as sales guys, I think a lot of times we can get into the habit of listening to our own voice, and we're more interested in what we have to sell because we're proud of the company that we work for. You're proud of the successes that you've had, and we want to share that. And I think we spend more time doing that a lot of times than we do listening. And for me, when I meet with a new client, I want to know as much about not just their business, but about that individual that I'm meeting with, so we can find common ground and we can use that to build the relationship off of. I've driven many of bosses insane with because I don't necessarily follow the bouncing ball and I don't necessarily follow the script. But for me, it's worked. I've tried to be genuine. I've tried
meeting at Whataburger at 4 a.m. really went well, boss. I promise.
I've closed a few deals at Whataburger at 4 a.m. in the morning during TAA, so it's worked well for me.
I've hated you a few times, especially in my earlier years, where you're like, we're still going and you're going with us. And I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. It's 4 a.m.
I have won more than many people to death in that situation, including myself, and hated myself the next day for it. I've grown up a little bit since then. I'll still be.
I think we all have.
I'll still be out late at TAA. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. You've got one of those like second gears
Yes.
after midnight that can't be matched by many.
Sheer drive, determination, and stupidity is what I call it.
I mean, I think my favorite is you telling me recently about your son finally deciding
My
that
my wife might be listening to this. We don't want to go too
he
far.
thought
into this.
he could outdo the old man.
Yeah. Decided to pop a few caps on some Coors Originals is what his favorite is these days, and decided while we were deer hunting one night that he was going to try to go drink for drink with me, and it didn't work.
Yeah,
So.
I can't imagine that had a good outcome. That just cracks me up because
Hey, I tried it with my old man when I was his age too, and I didn't work either.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. There's no way I was taking the old man down in that arena.
In fact, the first time I went out with my dad, I remember the bar we went to at VFW, and I thought I was cool and walked in and ordered a beer, and he went, nope, before you can go to beer, you got to have a drink out of every bottle that's lined up on that glass mirror behind the bar. And I made it about halfway through before I was puking in the parking lot. So,
My dad and one of his cohorts from work, Kahlua mudslided me on a New Year's when I was 18 for an entire evening. And I'm still like, and my wife loves the like chocolate martinis, and like that still kind of gives me a little bit of that taste. I think that's why it's so hard for me to.
So the reason today I don't do Fireball is because cinnamon schnapps got me at a young age as well, and I don't do anything cinnamon for that
Or
very reason.
Aftershock. You remember Aftershock?
I remember
Aftershock.
Aftershock and-
Sugar crystals in the bottle.
Gold sluggers with gold in it. Yep, done them all, and can't do any of them anymore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. Well, where did some of that really start clicking for you, and how have you adapted that or modified that over the years? Because it is the relationship building part that's so huge. Yeah. How have you really been able to like take advantage of that, like, and mold your way of doing that? Because people can tell you all day to build a relationship. Well, how do you start that?
Yeah.
How do you really? I mean, I think one of the good things you said a minute ago was, I go into it trying to listen and not only understand the business, but understand them on a personal level.
And for me, I'm going to plug the apartment associations for a minute. You know, the biggest key to my success as a young rep was getting involved in the associations. I got involved somewhat when I was still in the store as an assistant manager when I was in Waco. My rep at the time was big into it, so he would take me to those events and, you know, got to see how people operated and talked and, you know, networked. And then when I became a rep, you know, Fort Worth was my main territory, and I got involved at, you know, what was AATC. And I had some great mentors in the apartment association. People like Jackie Cagle with Rossa Floors, people like Cindy Tatum, who's, you know, she's one of my dearest friends. And she brought me in and she brought me in and she introduced me to people, you know. And the funny part about it is back then, you know, with Jackie, even to this day, technically we're competitors because we do flooring. You know, Sherwin does floor covering.
Yeah.
And she never looked at it like that. You know, she looked at it as here's a new member of the association that's looking to get involved. And she took me under her wing, and, you know, any event that I was at, she always made me feel comfortable and introduced me to somebody. And so I've tried to do that myself with new people coming in. And then I've leveraged the relationships from the associations that I think a lot of people that get into the association think that, okay, I paid my membership dues, leads are just going to fall from the sky now that I've done this. And
I showed up to all the PSC meetings.
yeah, and when you and when you do that, you become disillusioned of what it is that when we're at an event with owner operators, the last thing I want to do is sell while I'm there. I don't want to talk about my product. I don't want to talk about anything having to do with sales. I want to talk to the person. You know, what company do you work with? What's your background? Where did you come from? And then when you build up and you start that initial relationship, that conversation, now when you email them, you know, the following Monday, hey, it was great getting to know you, you know, would love to sit down and have a deeper conversation, they're more apt to respond to your email that way.
Absolutely.
Our clients are inundated with hundreds of emails a day. And if you're the guy that comes to every event and you've got your portfolio of, all your sell sheets and all the different widgets that you sell and you're trying to sell them at the event, you're getting deleted every time you send them an email because that's not what they're there for. They're there to talk to their counterparts who are friends within the industry, to meet with their suppliers who are now friends with them. And I'll use Jackie as an example again. When we talk about somebody that's grown up in this industry, when she first started out, similar to me, the people that she's working with now on the executive level, they were leasing agent and assistant managers now. It's tough to try to take that kind of a relationship away. You're not going to beat them. Price takes a back seat on a relationship like that. And that's what I strive to do, is that with each one of my clients, I try to build that, like I said before, build that long-term partnership. And it's a balance, you want to get to know them, but you don't want to occupy all of their time at an event. You don't want to inundate them with email. It's just about balance. And if you can get that initial relationship, follow up with them in a respectable time, when they get to a point that they need your services, they're going to reach out. I've found it all the times. I found it where, hey, I'm in an agreement with a different supplier right now. I can't use you right now, but I'd like you to stay in touch with me because when the opportunity comes, I'd like to give you a try. And I'm perfectly happy to start out as that second tier supplier, and I think as salespeople, we all need to look at that where you can't make the mistake is I either want all of your business or none of your business, because you're never going to get there. You're never going to be successful that way.
It's like you said too, you can't just go in swinging for the big ass jobs either.
No.
That's a lesson I've learned multiple times in different ways over the years. Like I tell everybody, we do everything from the curb to the roof.
Absolutely.
Pretty much. And I don't give a shit if the first thing you want to work with me on is some stair tread replacements or some job minimum stuff. I mean, great. Let me show you what we can do. And that we're going to communicate the same way as you continue to bring us along.
And you show them that those are that stair tread replacement, those 3 stair treads, it's the best project they've ever done on a project that small, because you took the attention to detail. You made sure that the customer was satisfied. You kept them in the loop. And that's how it starts.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we've always focused on. I mean, and you and I have talked about this before, and you know this. You see it on your end all the time, but we take so much attention to detail with our bid because it's the instruction manual, not only for the client, but for our project managers and our crews to follow. That to us, that is so crucial, because now when we go walk the job with you, it's real easy because of the amount of detail to just check things off. Did we do exactly what we said we're going to do?
Right.
And, our bids might take a little bit longer to get to you, but I promise you it's worth it. And it's funny because I guarantee our bids get passed around to our competitors more than anybody else in the industry. And we've had people fight this and be upset with this and not like it. It's part of the deal. I would rather be known for having that and that everybody else is being sent our bid because they know our bid's right and that we didn't cut corners, leave stuff out, that you can actually get an apples to apples bid, that it's not just, there's so many of our competitors that will literally walk a property and either wait for the client to send them our bid, or they will walk a couple of buildings, figure out the building types, and then they will do an average. And it's this bullshit spreadsheet. Nothing makes me angrier than to get a spreadsheet bid from a client saying, hey, match this scope,
just
or use this scope, when I already know it's shit. And then go figure this out. And then it's like, there's 3,000 feet of 2x6 fascia. Where? Which 3,000 feet?
And what does it lead to? When you do a bid like that, it leads to change orders. And what do construction managers on the operator side hate more than anything else? It's a boatload of change orders. You're going to have them. If you get into a wall or something like that, you can't always guarantee what's behind the substrate. But if you're constantly doing, okay, I'm low bid, but I'm also turning in 87 change orders at the end of the project. Where you're really low bid, you're probably going to be looking for work with a different client after that.
Yeah.
And we do it, we try to instill it with our owners, our owner operators, our contractors, the importance of the bid. And for us, it's the spec.
Yeah.
Because for you, the bid is the roadmap. For us, the spec is the Bible.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're basing your project on. That's what we're basing our warranty on. And at the end of the day, that's what we've explained to the client, or you has explained to the client. That's what they wanted, whether it was a short-term deal, long-term deal, whatever the case is. We want to make sure that spec is followed because we wrote it based on what the product would do, along with what the expectations of the owner that they had in the project.
I think that's funny too, because I've noticed over the years, and this isn't across the board, but it's some, that when it comes to our bid, and we'll just take an exterior carpentry and paint project, for example here, the client will literally zoom through our bid. Let's say it's 30 pages long. They'll just flip through it, go to that back page, here's the number, cool. But your 30 or 40 page spec, they will read the whole damn thing that has so much shit that I don't even understand.
Yep.
And there's a lot of CYA in that.
Yep.
But they will read that whole thing like, well, did you account for XYZ in here? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's in the spec.
Yep.
Didn't you read the spec? I'm like, no, I called James and asked him what I needed to have for this project.
And that's
and
that's why we include a spec at the beginning of every project, and we strive to have that pre-construction meeting, with the construction manager, the GC, us, whoever's on property that's going to be, handling the day-to-day on the property side. Put them all in the room together and let's go over the scope. Let's go over the spec. Let's go over the time frame, where we're going to put the dumpsters, all of those little things. So it's all lined out in the beginning before one contractor, before one painter or carpenter steps foot on the project. We've already got all of that information lined out, and every one of us is on the same page.
Yeah.
That way, when my guys are delivering, they know exactly where to take the material to. They know exactly where not to go, where they know what part of the phase it is. For you on a standpoint, you know what the property's expectations are, where they want the dumpsters. On my end, if I'm a rep, I know the sequence of buildings that we're going in. So when I come up to do a site visit and, to check on the job, make sure things are going smoothly, I know exactly where I need to be based on the time frame of where we're at in the project.
B, that was not directed at you, although you did send me one of those shitty spreadsheet bids recently. I will say, you did send me one of those, but it's rare that you send me those. Usually we're the ones providing that, so that's funny.
But I think you've got to be meticulous in it, whether it's the spec or the scope, because again, if you bullshit that, are you bullshitting the rest of the job? You're flying by the seat of your pants on it.
And I think it's important too, because that you guys do the specs and that you go over it with them, because I see it all the time where what the owner or management client thinks they want versus what they need is completely
absolutely
at opposite ends. Because I've been on the property where it needs a full rehab, but they really want to put lipstick on a pig or just enough to get it by to sell it, but yet they want to use super paint.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is the wrong way to go here. Like, why are you doing this? And then I'll call my rep, whoever it is at that time, and be like, yo, why are we putting super paint on this? Like, that's not what they need. They're about to sell this property.
Yeah.
They're just trying to freshen it up and put us on there. That super paint is going to have a harder bite. It's going to start, what deterioration is under there, it's going to speed it up, which you and I know, and having those conversations really do matter.
Absolutely. And thankfully, we're better served in a time now than we ever have been. We've all 10, 15 years ago, we were all on those job sites that the site, they were using T111 siding, the
masonite,
the masonite, the pine, the trim had all delaminated, and we couldn't go out and say, okay, we're going to put duration or emerald or even super paint on that, because if you put it on it, it was going to rip the wood fibers right off of it. And that, as a rep and in the role I'm in now, is identify what the customers, what their want and what their expectations are. Is it a short-term hold? Is it a pick and pluck? Are we only doing portions of the building? If that's the case, then yeah, we don't need to go emerald or duration or whatever the product is. Let's put a product in that works right for you and works right for this specific project. And that's why we write the specs.
Yeah. I mean, I just, there's so many things from over the years, you know what I mean? Like, it's funny that, I mean, you'll probably remember this. We did a job together early on, and this particular client was a newer client, and it was one of those jobs where we were just really trying to do the bare minimum. But once we started pressure washing stuff, I mean, like, there was no, I mean, like, pressure washers were blowing holes through the substrates.
See it all the time.
And I'm calling the client and sending them pictures like, what do you want to do here, man? Like, I mean, like, there's a hole in this now. And I mean, I'm not talking like a normal hole. I'm talking like in a 2x8 fascia, there's the size of a size 12 shoe now that is deteriorated out. And that's just where it stopped bleeding at the moment.
Right.
And the client literally was like, I'm not spending any money on that. Like, I don't care what you do. Fill it with caulk, stamp it with another board, and paint that shit. And I'm like, I mean, if this is what it's going to take to get us off this job, great. But I'm never doing another job for you if that's the way you're doing it, because I'm not doing work like that.
Well, and, you know, and from a contractor's perspective, that's one of the greatest things of where we're at today is, just by the nature of the beast, a lot of those type of owners have weeded themselves out over time, which is phenomenal for the industry. And there's so many great clients that are out there that you can work with, that you have that ability to be.
Well, yeah, it's nice to be at that point in your career to do that. But some of them that are out here following this, listening to this, like, they may not be at that point yet. So, but again, I think you really have to decide where you're going to draw the line, you know, and what you're going to stand on, because that's tough. I can even remember early on in my career where my partners weren't real happy with me because I spent time out working on this bid and it was mine to lose. And I was like, yep, nope, I don't want to work with this person. Yep. Like, I already see the writing on the wall. I see where this is going to go. And, you know, hey, here's all the information. One of y'all wants to go and you want to do this. Like, my gut's telling me, no, this is not something we want to put our name on.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. At the end of the day, you're putting your name on it as a contractor of what you're doing. And, you know, there's all kinds of reasons why you're going to do a pick and pluck, or, you know, whatever the short-term goal is. And I understand that, and a lot of it makes sense.
Yeah.
But where you're dealing with those particular type of clients, that it's like that with everything that they do.
Yeah.
When something,
it's their standard.
Yeah, but when something goes wrong at the end of it, whether it's an inspection or a sale falls through or whatever the case is, and they say, well, it was just recently rehabbed, and if they're talking to the potential new buyer and says, okay, well, who did this rehab? The last thing you want is your name on that, you know, coming out in that conversation. And so it's a delicate balance. But again, in the world we're in today, we're in a better position from a contractor standpoint to be able to deal with, again, such fantastic clients that, you know, those clients are still out there. They're just a lot fewer and far between. And that's a great thing for like I said, for our industry.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you said that about the associations, because like I said when we started out, that was something you really taught me the value of. Yeah. And unfortunately, throughout my career, I got worse about that. I got burnout. I did so much.
It's easy to do.
That I got burnt out, and my client base had grown to a point that it was pretty much everything I could do to keep up with the amount of clients I had gained and still provide them the same level of service.
Right.
I didn't have time to be cutting out in the middle of the afternoon to go to a XYZ meeting in Fort Worth or back in Dallas. And then, you know, mind you, the same committee for two different associations. Yep. It's like, well, yours is on Tuesday, yours is on Thursday, and just the bouncing back and forth. But I have gotten back in the last year and made it a point to be more in part. Like, I joined the IRO committee at AAGD.
Those are great.
Which is funny because everybody's like, well, you don't own any properties. Why the hell are you an IRO? Well, it's actually a big push because they want other people to understand and to add and benefit to that committee. So Anthony Young has done a great job running that, and you guys got to hear Anthony speak a few months back, and being involved in that, like it is crucial, especially if you're starting out. And then I mean, finding a balance with that does work for you, because I mean, I can see the drop off in certain things as far as new clients, because I haven't been doing that stuff as much, and getting back into it.
And balance is the most important part. I mean, I absolutely love the associations. I've been involved, for years. But for years, early in my career, I got asked to chair numerous committees. And,
I remember, because you asked me to be on them.
Well, but for the longest time, I always passed. I said I couldn't. I'm happy to be involved. I want to be a part of the committee, but I physically can't take on the role and the responsibility of chairing it, because I'm so busy at work. I'm so busy at, my kids were young. I was trying to make sure that, I was at football practice, or, my daughter's softball practice, or whatever the case was, in a timely manner, to where I had that balance where, they knew that they had a dad coming home every night to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And so if I couldn't give it 100% at the time, I would rather not do it, because I'm just, again, I go back to do what you say you'll do. And if I couldn't do it the best of my ability, I would rather not do it and just be a part of it to help support it. So for years, when the association would come to me and ask me to chair, I said no. And then as, the kids got older, my career path changed a little bit to where it did free up. I wasn't on your job sites 3 days a week,
Asshole.
It allowed me to step into that. And so many of the successes that I've had career-wise has come from the association and the relationships that I've built. And to me, it's a family. It really is. These are a group of folks that they're not just association members. They're not just clients. They're not just competitors. These are friends, and they're family to me these days. And to me, that's more important than anything.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think you kind of addressed that earlier too. Like, the people that are just getting involved or are starting to, you can't treat it like a trade show.
No.
That's not what it's there for. That's not the purpose it serves. Yes, they do trade shows.
Yeah.
But that's not really what it's all about. Like, and don't be discouraged just because you didn't walk away from it with a lead that turned into a job, because if you approached it right and you built the relationship, or start to, that grows, but that takes time. You can't do it overnight. I don't know about you. This is 17 years for me now. I can't think of one single time that somebody I met for the very first time at a trade show turned into a client immediately.
Yeah.
That like a contract was signed, or hey, here, bid this and go. I mean, like, yeah, a relationship started.
Sure.
And then it allowed that to start growing. And yeah, may have got an opportunity to bid something, but I guarantee you the first couple of things we bid probably didn't get that job.
No, it was a numbers bid. Hey, they had to have the third one. They met you at the trade show. They had your your card on their desk, or they had the email in from you, but it got you in the door. It gave you that ability to
it got
create
you the
growth.
introduction.
And I joke about it all the time. Years ago, when I was going to the PSC meetings religiously on the Fort Worth side, I had a competitor there, and I would notice that he would get there right before the PSC meeting started, and he was gone as soon as it was over. And you know me, I don't do that. As soon as the meeting was over, we were at Joe's Crab Shack. I was probably at the bar having a drink with somebody or multiple somebodies, and having those conversations and building those relationships. And I finally ran into him somewhere else, and we were talking about it, and I was trying to, even though he was a competitor, trying to coach him and bring him into the association. And he flat out told me, he's like, my boss put it on my appraisal as a goal that I had to attend. That's all it was. Didn't know anything about the growth or the importance of the relationship side of it, is just that I had to attend. And he got exactly what he put into it. It lasted about a year, and then you never saw him again. And that they're no longer truly in business anymore.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to younger salespeople, or service, especially supplier partners that are coming up in the industry, is get involved build the relationships, do what you can do to be involved and put yourself out there, but do what you're passionate about. Don't do like you and I did and sign up for every committee and try to be a part of everything because you can end up where
you'll burn out.
Yeah, you burn out. You end up an unpaid employee of the association, and I know my boss wouldn't have cared for that, But I was lucky enough that my bosses allowed me to grow into myself and to be able to take that role and shape it into what I wanted it to be. So now when I tell the younger generations coming up, find your passion. If your passion is community service, there's a committee for that. If your passion is for membership and help drive new membership, there's a committee for that. If it's golf, we know it ain't me, but I've never once served on a golf committee. But
this guy re-landscapes golf courses, y'all. You've never seen anything like this.
You can always know where I've been by the divots that I've left.
Yeah, you hope he's on the groups behind you, not in front of you.
But from when you look at government affairs, that's for me. That's probably the next step I'm looking at. Is that I'm passionate about government. I'm passionate about finding ways to help the industry fight some of the regulation and the taxing and everything else that our clients face on a day-to-day basis. And so that's kind of my next step is I want to jump into that to see what I can do to help with that.
That's cool.
But find what it is that you're passionate about and join that. Because if you're passionate about it and it's something that you're interested in, you're going to give it more energy than just signing up for a dozen committees and going, okay, I want to be a part of all of it.
Before you do all that, though, can you work with Mindy and bring back the Joe T. Garcias thing again? That old school Joe T. Garcias, man, we used to have that rocking.
I love Joe T. Garcias. I loved Casino Night. I would love to see Casino Night come back as a supplier. I love Joe T's, but until they start taking credit cards, it makes it a little harder from an entertaining and networking standpoint to have it.
That's true. That's true. Maybe we could get AAGD to do it and do it at Javier's or something.
Trying to explain the personal finances of what I spent that night to the folks at home was always a challenge of why did you spend that much on your own personal time?
I forget about that was just a cash-only place.
It's a great environment. I love the event.
Yeah.
And Mindy, if you are out there listening, I would love to see the Casino Night come back in some kind of way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that was always a blast.
My phone is going to be burning up when I walk out of here.
Yeah, we're already getting the hearts and the likes on that one. So yeah, you're definitely going to get.
I may have found a new committee I'm going to be chairing.
I'm not volunteering. It was just an idea.
Just send me Des. She'll be fine.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Yeah, we've done that to help tackle it a little bit too. Des is real involved with the Fort Worth and AAGD. She kind of bounces between the two.
Yeah.
But then Mason and I have split it, considering he's way over on the Fort Worth side. I'm on the Dallas side. Yeah. So I try to be a part of the Dallas stuff. He does the Fort Worth. And then if it's one of the events, obviously, then we're all there.
Right. And that's even with us. That's what we do here in Dallas. We've got 15 reps that just solely work in the multifamily industry. And so it's, we're past the days of me trying to do it all when I was a rep and trying to cover all of it. We've preached to our reps the importance of the involvement and getting involved, but get involved on your side of town. If your territory and your geography is on the Dallas side, put your heart and soul into the Dallas side. If it's on the Tarrant County side, put your heart and soul on the Tarrant County side, and then we can rejoin together at the events, the golf tournaments, the business exchanges, all those different events that we can come together as a group and be able to join in on the festivities that way. But if you've got the people, that's the way I definitely recommend it for supplier partners, is to do that divide and conquer.
Well, what about for the people that don't really know about all the committees or what that was? Because you said find your passion there. What do you think's the best way to kind of stick your toe in and even just learn about it a little bit and see what there is that you might be interested in?
The two greatest committees for that is if you're a supplier, if you're on the supplier side, the PSC council meetings, both sides, both associations have them. They're phenomenal.
Yep.
It brings in a group of suppliers that typically have a panel of owner-operators that will give insight to what their business is and how to get in with them. I think today Tarrant County's was over government affairs. That's a great one for suppliers. And if you are a supplier, get to know your other suppliers. I'll use an example of when I was coming up, a landscaping company that I was in really tight with him. We became really good friends. And if he happened to be on a property and heard somebody, a property manager griping about their current paint supplier, it was, hey, call my buddy James over at Sherwin Williams. He'll come out and he'll get you taken care of. If I happen to be on a property and the property manager was upset with their current landscaper, hey, call my buddy over here and give him a call and he'll come out and he'll take care of you. So get to know your suppliers because they can be a wealth of information for you when it comes to
That's
building
what this is right
Yeah.
here. I mean,
and I would like to think, our business is crossed because, not only am I a supplier to the owner operators, obviously we're also a supplier for you.
Yeah.
But I would like to think that, if I was selling widgets, our paths probably would have crossed and we'd be in a very similar relationship. And I try to do that now. And then the second one is I call it relatively new because it's, probably 5 or 6 years old now, is the next gen committees for both of them. Next gen is bringing in those new members that, whether they're new to the industry, they're new to the association, maybe they've been in the industry and the association for a while, but they're at a different company that have now the ability to get more involved in. Come to the next gen, and that will put you in a room with not only people that are new that may not know what's going on, but they've always got mentors in the room. And Tarrant County, for example, has assigned mentors to some of the next gen members to be able to meet and have those conversations. And how do I grow? How do I get this to help my career? How do I get it to help my goals of what I'm looking for? How do I put more in so I can get more out of it?
Minnie just said voluntold. Absolutely.
We do a lot of voluntolds in the association.
Yeah. It's interesting how this has evolved over the years too, because it's funny. I see a lot of the people that were brand new to the industry, just like myself,
Yep.
and now they're leading committees, chairing committees.
They're on the
and,
board now.
Some of them are on the board. I mean, it's just wild. A lot of them give me a lot of shit, that I'm not there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, good for you. I don't know how you keep up with all of it. Like, that's a lot of commitment. Once you take it to that level.
Absolutely. And
not saying it is absolutely worth it on
100%.
many different levels.
And there's different goals for different people. I know there are some people that look at it as a career trajectory, and that's perfectly fine. It works for them. For myself, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as it helps grow my business, obviously. And that's what we're all here for is to grow our business. But I look at it, for me these days, it's all about the relationships and the friendships. I love what I do. I love selling coatings and putting programs together, but I see the horizon on the line for me.
You put in your time.
From a career standpoint, and for me, it's all just, enjoying the friendships and the relationships that I've developed over the years and seeing how I can give back and how I can help the associations grow and be better tomorrow than they were today.
I think that's great, man. And I think you've always been that way. I think you've always shown that you give way more than you ask for. And I think that's crucial in this type of sales role in this industry. You can't just go in expecting things.
No.
Like, everything takes time.
And that's one of the biggest keys that you can look at it is what we're doing today doesn't affect our sales for tomorrow. From a sales perspective, it doesn't affect our sales for tomorrow. I'm not selling a gallon more of paint tomorrow because I had a conversation with a client today. But if you look at it for the long term, and again, going back for me, I want those long-term partnerships. What I did today, it may come to fruition 3 months, 6 months from now.
Yeah, it's the compounding effect. Yeah. It's just like your stock portfolio.
Exactly.
You're gonna buy a little bit, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna let it ride.
Yep.
And eventually it starts compounding.
Yep.
It's not something that typically happens overnight. Like, yeah, you have some of those. I mean,
sure.
Let's can't overlook those because that does happen. I mean, there are people you genuinely click with and mesh with,
Absolutely.
and I think that's always been an approach I've taken too. That it's worked the best between Mason and I, just because we're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're totally different.
Right.
Not only like geographically that he's in Fort Worth side and I'm Dallas side, but there's a lot of times that I may meet somebody and kind of click with them, but go, man, like, that's Mason.
Yeah.
And why would I just not introduce him and try to help there.
For sure.
If that's going to be the better fit for Element as a whole.
And that's what you have to look at.
That's where you've always done it too. Like, you know, and it's not just me, you know, you have tons, especially back when you were a rep. I'm not the only contractor you were a rep for.
No.
You know, you had to make sure you balanced all that stuff and found the fits for people.
Right.
And that's something I think you've always done very, very well.
I appreciate it. You know, it can become a juggle sometimes, and I think a lot of it is you have to put yourself out there in your clients. You got to put them in your shoes. You know, we joked about golf. Not a golfer. It's not my game. Never has been. Never will be.
Hunting and fishing, got you. But
if somebody,
golf,
you know,
nope.
but if I have a client that wants to go golf, you know what? I will more than happy put myself out there, and you'll get to laugh at me and laugh at my drive. And my first drive may or may not go past the ladies' tee box. Whatever the case is, we're going to have a good time. I can promise you that. But I'm willing to put myself out into that environment because it's important to them and it's something they like to do.
Yeah.
You know, now don't get me wrong, I'm always up for a clay shoot. Anytime there's a clay shoot, I'm first one in line. But you have to be willing to put yourself in your client's shoes and what's important to them, and with your employees. You know, Mason's a great example. You know, you're a lot alike, but you have a lot of differences, and be able to find ways to capitalize on that and be complementary of each other from a work standpoint, and pass on those leads that when you see him go, man, I know him and Mason would click, and Mason's going, Garrett and so would get along phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that where we've shared accounts.
Yep.
And just seen who gets more traction because neither of us had a great feel.
Yeah.
Or maybe we weren't far enough in with the powers that be within that
For sure.
ownership or management group, and let that play out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's been other times where one of us been in, like, hey man, you should try, like, go see what you can do with it. Like, yeah. I'm bowing out, like, you know,
Absolutely.
See how that works for you.
And you know, even on our end, we do it. You know, from my level to our rep level to our store level. You know, I'm calling on the C-suite folks. Our reps are, you know, we're knocking on not only the property doors, but knocking on the middle management and building those relationships. And then our stores, man, they have great relationships with the maintenance teams. Because
yeah, you kind of run that for me because, like, yeah, I think we went through, like, and not that I don't like each and every one of these guys and still talk to them and have relationships with almost all of them that I can think of. But we literally went through, I think, 3 or 4 reps after you switched to your new role, just because we were so used to you. And it's like, I called you for months, like, dude, you got to come back. Like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm not doing this.
And, you know, and the great thing about our company is so much of it is promotion from within.
Yeah.
And not everybody has the same passions that I do. And, you know, multifamily for us is a great stepping stone in the career path.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, we've had a lot of phenomenal reps that had started as a rep in that multifamily area, but they wanted to do something different, do more, grow their career in a different perspective, and they had to take those steps to do it. I'm a little bit different that, you know, I knew going into my first rep gig that I was multifamily bound and would have to be drug out of it kicking and screaming. And so far I've managed to stay in. And, you know, from a career perspective, I've turned down opportunity. I've turned down, you know, money and positions and jobs and things like that. But for me, it was always, if I'm not passionate about it, I don't feel I can give it my best, and therefore I don't want to do it.
And you knew what made you happy.
Exactly. You know, we have all different kind of markets and different things that I find interesting. I'm just not as passionate about it as I am when it comes to multifamily.
Yeah, you don't want to be out there selling paint to guys that are painting bridges or spraying rigs.
Yeah,
like,
you know, I mean,
not your.
I could make a lot of money doing it, but but we have guys that are passionate about that, and I let them take it and run with it. You know, that's how we stay successful. So
Absolutely. How do you see the market changing right now, and what do you see in the market right now from your vantage point? Because this is a question you and I talk about this every time we see each other. Yeah. We both get asked this question on a daily, if not weekly basis. It's
tough. I mean, there's no doubt about it, and you know this could open up into a whole political conversation. But you know we're in a tough market. You know, not only us as a manufacturer, as a general contractor, our owner operators are in a tough market right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. You know, political climates are higher than they've ever been. You know, we've got everything from tariffs to economy to all these different things. And the one thing that I will tell you is I sat down in seminar that I went to last year that wasn't really sure if it would be worth my time going to, because it was actually bankers and investors that were putting it on, and it was really more geared to the smaller owner operators, the independents and the IOs and things like that. But I went, and one of the things that I walked away from feeling confident is the lenders, the ones that are actually doling that money out. Guys, there's money to lend, there's money to get into the market for the smart deals and the right deals. And I think we're going to see more of that. 25 is going to be tough. There's
I
no
did the
getting
same.
around
I
it.
went to some things like that as well.
But when because we can talk to our owner operator clients all day, and they have a great perspective, obviously, but to hear it coming from those financial institutions and those bankers that, there's money out there now for the right deal, but their optimism for the next couple of years was extremely contagious about how optimistic they were.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm looking at it right now.
Well, it's a very conservative approach too. I think there's got to be a little bit of market correction in this process, because you went from a time period shortly before COVID, like we'll say 2015 to 2019-ish time period, where money was flowing abundantly and interest rates were low.
Yep.
And people were way overpaying for portfolios and properties.
Yep.
And now those values are getting corrections.
For sure.
Where is that person at to absorb that? Is that still a deal that works for them,
Right.
or
And,
whatnot? That changes the game a little bit.
And in those good times, there's also a lot of people that became overextended and over-leveraged on debt. And I think you'll see this year, especially, and going into next year, for those operators that are cash heavy, they're going to walk away with some great deals, and that's going to be good for
Well,
them.
there's also a lot of them that are combining powers now,
True.
too, because there's people that, because of how they're leveraged, they don't really have a choice but to be absorbed by somebody else to make that still work.
Right. So, and I think a lot of that shows promise, not only for the industry, but for your market as well.
Yeah.
So,
Have you, in your 31 years, have you ever seen anything quite like this? I mean, because the only thing that comes close in the money sense on this for me would be right when I was starting, which was like the 2007, 2008.
yeah.
2008 was brutal.
Yeah, 08 was probably out of my career, is probably the biggest kick to the shorts that I've experienced. And even then, multifamily, especially in DFW, we
Still strong.
I don't want to say we came out unscathed, but we came out a whole lot better than the rest of the country. And for DFW, I think we're still in that kind of phase right now, because, times are tough. The market across the country is rough, but there's still 750 people a day moving to the DFW market. And every one of those people need housing of some sort. So, for us, like always, we're not recession-proof in DFW, but we're a lot more resistant to it.
Closest thing you could probably have to.
Much rather to be here than in a California or a Vegas market or somewhere like that, for your and my position.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's just interesting how that's changed. Like, because you hear about the sales or the cycles in it, and they usually say it's 10-year cycles. I heard that forever when I was starting out. And we've been on it, and it's on the up, but it will come down for a while. And it's like, usually the come down is 2 to 3 years, and then we go back up.
Wow.
And it was like, we went like almost 14 years of it just going straight up. And now it's dipped. It's changing the game a little bit, and you're seeing a lot of things change in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
Like you get these 100-year storms or freezes, and you have hurricanes that hit, and you have all these different major catastrophes and things that flood in a whole bunch of growth. And you'll see like everybody wants to start their own company in those time periods and stuff. And then now is the time period where you start seeing like who's really doing what they say they're doing, because they start coming going. I mean, I can remember pre-COVID, there was like, I remember walking into one of the trade shows, and there was like 15
Yeah,
GCs.
there was a GC on every corner.
And I was like, holy shit, I've never even heard of half of you. Like, who are you? Where did you come from? And then, by the time COVID's over with, all right, now we're back down to like, all right, one or two of them stuck around.
Well, and it's,
the rest.
for me, I like it, because I grew up in the oil and petroleum business with my dad being in it, is, riding those busts and booms of the oil fields. My family felt it for sure. And, I had my oldest brother went into the oil fields in the beginning, and he took a completely different approach than my dad did. My dad had been around it long enough that you stick money back in the good times because they don't stay good. And he didn't. He was buying the new truck and the new four-wheeler and the new girlfriend and, everything and then when it bust, he was selling it, he was getting repoed, whatever the case is. And I think we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot, everybody always comes in on the great times thinking it's going to stay the great times.
Absolutely.
The companies that stay, no matter what the service industry, what the service is, are the ones that had a plan, and B, they stuck by their original core goals of how they were going to handle clients, how they were going to handle projects, and they stuck with them because your customer stuck with you because of that.
Yeah. So. Well, you've said a couple of times now, you've mentioned the word mentor. So it's kind of a double question here, but who have been some of the biggest mentors for you in your career, one? And two, how did you come about building the relationship with those mentors? Because I think people hear that all the time. Find a mentor.
Yeah.
That sounds real easy, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
It's really not. I mean, for me, internally, from an inside the company perspective, I've had a bunch. The one that stands out to me the most is Pat Bush.
Yep.
He became my mentor begrudgingly, I guess, more than anything. I attached myself to his hip. And, when you work for a company the size of the company that I work for, there's a lot of background that you have to figure out. There's a lot of red tape that you have to figure out how to navigate. And when I was, I had a goal early on in my career as a rep, is I wanted to get into the position that I'm in now. I wanted to move into the national accounts department. And there was a career path for that, but it wasn't one that I was willing to take. So I wanted to kind of trudge my own way and, create my own road to it. And one of the biggest things that it was for me was Pat took me under his wing and was like, you've got the customer side figured out. You know how to deal with clients and put programs and build relationships. Let me show you how to work the back side of the company. Who do you need to call to handle this? How do you get past this? So he taught me how to overcome those roadblocks internally. And we watched, what was a mentorship grow into a great friendship over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Externally, I've mentioned probably two of the biggest ones with Jackie and with Cindy, is they, Jackie, two completely different people of how they do things and have personalities and how they go about things, but to watch Jackie work as working, when she was in the rep as a floor covering rep, to watch her talk to a property manager, to talk to a leasing agent. I don't even think she knew that she was mentoring me in a lot of cases. It was just me being in awe and learning how she did it, and with Tatum, it was the complete opposite. She literally took me under her wing, and I'm going to show you, she showed me the intricacies of the association and the ladder of success in the associations and how to get involved and all those different things. And it was just different pieces of the puzzle that, you try to put together.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's important to me to try to be that mentor, mainly, or not necessarily mainly, primarily for my Sherwin, folks that are coming up, is to set that example and be that mentor for them so I can help them pave their way to successes. But then also on the, outside of the Sherwin spectrum is, I try to make sure I'm one of those mentors. I'm one of them for the lead gen, working with, with folks
Absolutely.
there to help other people grow their careers. And I joke all the time going, my way may not be the best way to do it. It may not be the smartest way to do it because I've put in a lot of long days and long nights and, all that kind of thing. But for me and my personality, it's worked phenomenally well. So it's the most important part, I think, is to find someone that truly can be a mentor and then sit down with them and just pick their brain. I'm a firm believer that knowledge is best when it's shared. We have a lot of people in the world that think that if I retain
It's my top
and
secret.
I hold all of this knowledge, then nobody has it, and it's mine and I'll be successful. And I just don't believe that. I believe the more I can share, not only internally, but externally to a degree about the successes and how to, how I've shaped my career. If that can help you, then by all means, I'm here to help any way I can.
Yeah, you've always been like that, and I think that's where we clicked right off the bat, because like you have always done that. And I mean, again, thank you. Yeah. And for seeing whatever you saw and being willing to share with me and teach me and take me under your wings and kind of show me how those things work like it had been done for you. I mean, I've told this story before. When I came into the sales game, my bosses told me I had to find one really big egg to put in my basket, and then you get a bunch of small to mediums around it. And the only big egg I knew that wasn't already somebody's client, that I actually knew who they were because I had had an apartment with them or two, was Lincoln, which is now Willowbridge. And they literally laughed at me and were like, "You're never going to do this. Like, I've tried for over a decade. Ken Schwartz will never let you in on this. Like, and you're damn sure not going to get in at the Village," which is one place I still haven't done work really. I mean, I've done a couple small things in the Village. Anybody that works with them knows what the Village is. It is the biggest monstrosity of a complex in the entire state, I think.
Yeah, pretty close.
And, but I told you this and shared this information. You're like, "That's no problem. Like, I can introduce you to people. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but here." And you introduced me to Darnell Harris. And I literally attached myself to Darnell's hip at everything I could, trying to talk to him, trying to build it. And I mean, I know I had to just have driven him absolutely crazy for at least a year. And he was finally like, "Hey, man, this new business exchange thing coming up. I finally talked Ken into going to it. He drinks Coors Original. Go over there, get him a Coors or two, stand in line, and talk to him. It's your best shot you get." And I'll never forget that meeting, and I did exactly that. And he's like, "Darnell set you up on this, didn't he?" And I was like, "I'm not telling my secrets, man. Like, I just want this opportunity." And we talked, and he told me a few things he liked about what I said. He told me what he didn't like about what I said.
You always knew where you stood, that's for sure.
It was the greatest thing in the world, man, because there was no gray area with this man. It was black and white. That's it. There is no gray. If you're in the gray, he ain't fucking with you.
That's right.
And it's black and white. And he told you exactly what he wanted, how he wanted it, and I mean, it was on you at that point. And you changed something without talking to him first, or took somebody else's word or direction, man, that's on you. If he told you and it was wrong, he'd own it.
Exactly.
But if he didn't tell you, you're eating it.
But look at the steps you did. So yes, I made the introduction, but you took the introduction and rolled with it and had the aggressiveness and the wherewithal to attach yourself to Darnell. To be able to to get to know Darnell, who you couldn't have asked for a better one to get to know.
Right.
I mean, he's one of the greatest guys in the industry.
Absolutely.
But to be able to do that, and then he saw something in you because of it, and allowed that to set you the insight to go meet with Ken.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship that I talk about every day when we talk about what is a relationship. That's it 100%. You didn't go in, like you said, swinging for the fences, thinking that you were going to walk into the Villages and pick up 90% of the share that's out there. You found somebody that was willing to have the conversations with you, developed a relationship with them. And Darnell didn't sign any of your contracts.
Not then.
But he put you in a position to get you in front of the person that does.
Absolutely.
And that is immeasurable in our industry.
Yeah, and I mean, even Ken then told me, like, "Hey, I already got my 3 guys. So I'll keep your card because I liked what you said and these things. And if one of them messes up, I'll give you a shot." I said, "Okay." I thought he was just blowing smoke at me. I was like, "Man, I'm going to have to keep working this. I'm going to keep working." Sure as shit, within like a month or 2 of that, I get a call from Ken. I also happened to randomly get a call from Sheila Palmer on the same day and about the same property. And they both got my name different ways. Like, I had never met Sheila.
Right.
That was another word of mouth thing that she called me on that one. So I got in right then and there with him, and I can even remember this went on for like a year or so, and I mean, Ken would let me bid stuff. I got some really small stuff, and I finally got one decent carpentry and paint job that I finally like beat Tim Gibbs over at FTK out on. And I was so happy because Tim and I had become friends, and I was like, I finally got you, you know. And I was like, we're gonna do this now. And I remember during this project, Ken had told me he was going on vacation and that he would be out for a week, but that when he got back Monday morning at 8 a.m., he wanted to be on this property and walk in it, and we were gonna do another walk.
Yeah.
So, all right, no problem. Well, during that week that he was gone, I look up and see that there's a fire at one of their properties, which is like blocks from our office at the time. So I know Ken's out, and I happen to have gotten to know Jay Parmalee a little bit at that point, and I called Jay, and I was like, hey, man, like, I see this on fire. I know Ken's out of town. Do you guys need help? He's like, yes. He's like, call Lenny, you know, and get your guys away. How fast can you be there? I was like, I can have shit loaded up in my truck and be there in 5 minutes. He's like, get there. If you get there first, then you can handle this.
There you go.
And I'll never forget when Ken got back on Monday morning, I got a call at 7 a.m. before our 8 a.m. walk going, well, I guess we're meeting at the fire now. He goes, I don't know how you did it. I would have never given you something that damn big yet. I told you had to earn your stripes, but I guess you found a way around that. Yeah. He goes, so I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, no, yes, Ken. Yes, Ken.
The greatest thing about Ken is he had the best bullshit detector of anybody that I've ever met, and he had no problems calling you out on it.
Dude, he, like I said, he was intimidating as shit at first because there are people that love Ken, people that hated Ken. And there was people that were scared of Ken and people that loved Ken. Yep. And you heard the people that were scared of Ken stories, and you're like, oh, man, I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I can deal with him. Like, is he really going to be like that? And you're like, but once you got to know him just a little bit, and you realized, again, no gray area, black and white, if you do as you're told and you do what you say you're going to do, he's going to be the greatest player because there's no guessing with him.
No, and look how much you learned.
Absolutely.
From working with a guy like Ken, especially being young in that career, you know, in your career at that point. And it's always amazing to me the people that you can learn from, you know, because I laugh as a young rep, I'd walk in and, you know, dealing with painting contractors, that's all they do, you know, 10 hours a day, they just paint. And you go try to talk to them, well, they've been doing something the same way for 40 years. And now the 23-year-old kid is there trying to tell them that there's a better way. You know, I've been painting since before you were born and blah, 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 blah. Absolutely. But, you know, it's 2003. Are you using the same computer today that you used in 1998? Things change. Technology changes. Paint changes. And, you know, even on me, for the guys like Ken that have been in this industry for so long, the amount that they taught me as a new rep, you know, when I was walking a job, literally there were times it would take me 6 hours to walk a project because I was looking at every little thing because I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And he was able to help guide me going, dude, you're an idiot if you're going to spend all the time. You need to look this, and this. And then that helped me shape and mold my site walks. And you've been on many of site walks with me. Yeah. And, you know, they can go well or they can go brutal. It just depends on what the job looks like when I get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how do you see the next few years going? I mean, what do you see on the horizon? How do you see things changing?
I think we'll see, you know, like you mentioned, you know, you're going to see some more conglomerations, you know, some more buyouts, things like that. I think we're definitely going to see a lot more of that. I think, you know, multifamily is still in DFW specifically. I think we're still in a really good spot. You know, we've just got such a population growth that's going to continue to help drive our industry and our housing. I don't want to get too involved in it, but government's got to get their shit together. There's no doubt about that. You know, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle or what color tie you wear, they've all got to get their shit together and get it fixed. And I think if we can ever get to that point, then we're going to be in a lot better place than we are now. And that's not happening overnight. You know, we didn't fuck it up in such a short amount of time. It's going to take a little while to go in and fix it, but we've, and again, we could turn this into a whole different kind of show if I start talking politics,
right.
but a lot of it comes from us, not only from those of us in the industry continuing to fight for our industry and for the rights of our owners and, our businesses and everything that we do, but just as an individual. We're not in a point in life now where I think you can be a fence sitter, where you can just roll with the status quo and wake up and every day is sunshiny and rainbows. We're just not in that environment, and if you're not fighting for what you think is right, you're not helping. And I think we're at that point where there is no sitting on the sidelines anymore. You've got to get involved, and you've got to fight for what you believe in and what you think is right.
Absolutely. And yes, Brian, you are absolutely correct. That is exactly like you as well. There's definitely no gray area with you either.
I've been on the receiving end of that one a time or two as well.
Black and white. And, like Brian, same thing, man. Like he was instrumental in my career too. Like I started getting to work with Brian as an estimator.
Yep.
And we built a relationship that, has stood the test of time. And, I always made sure I took care of him and, did the things that he asked and stood by that. And, whether I was supposed to call him or not, I always kept him in the loop and where I was at. And, that worked out great for me because, Brian and I built a relationship, a personal friendship.
Absolutely.
And then, at the time, and as I progressed through my career, and then the day came where John decided he wasn't going to be selling day to day, and guess who asked and said that it was me or bust to be on his account? Brian Freese. And he's been instrumental in helping me as well, and I've learned a shit ton from
100%.
Brian. Like they don't call him Rain Man for nothing,
Not
man.
at all.
I mean, I still haven't met anybody that can consistently be as accurate as him at guessing numbers.
Yep.
And telling you what something's going to cost. And he used to make me write it down when we'd meet on the property, and I'd write down his number, and then as soon as John got done pricing, I'd be running back like, hey, man, what was the number on that? Why do you care? I'm like, because I want to know. I got to see how close he was. And he'd rattle off whatever number, and I'm like, holy shit, he's within like $100 on a six-figure job. Like, this is insane.
Yeah, those are the guys you want to latch yourself to. And Brian, you've got an open invite to play golf with me anytime you want to play, brother. We've played a couple of times at y'all's tournament. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, man. Let's do some fun ones here before we have to wrap this up. I know we got a little bit of late start, but I want to be respectful of your time, and I know you still got a drive ahead of you.
I mean, I only live on the opposite end of the world from here.
You absolutely do, for sure. If you could have one superpower, what superpower would it be and why?
Oh, God. I'm not good at these.
That's why I'm doing this to you now.
I used to say the power to read someone's mind. That, I mean, from a sales gig, that would be that would be phenomenal. I probably still say that, but it scares the shit out of me.
Careful what you ask for. Might not want to be able to read the wife's mind all the time.
You're right. You're just sitting here. I don't know if I want to know what's in your mind all of the time. But yeah, that would be mine. I couldn't give two rips about strength or flying or anything like that. But the mental psyche is something that has always interested me.
Yeah. All right. If you got to leave your kids with one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
What we talked about today. I mean, it's do what you say you'll do. We didn't talk about it. I've got two kids. I've got a 19-year-old son that's a sophomore at Tarleton. My daughter Jillian is 16. She's a junior down at Red Oak. Two of the greatest. I couldn't ask for better kids. They have. And I've tried to instill my work ethic into them, and to be able to see that shine through with them is, to me, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened in my life. It's funny because when, as younger adult, even early in my marriage, I didn't want kids. I always said I want kids. I was selfish. I wanted the big house and big land and be able to use my money for me and that kind of thing. And then when we had them, you can't imagine your life without them.
Yeah.
They're entirely different, but they both have a work ethic that I wish I could find a way to bottle and instill it into every bit of the youth that we have today. And I look at it as from a standpoint of about the time that they turn to early teenagers, I stopped referring to it as I'm raising kids and I'm raising young adults. Because my goal was twofold. One, I wanted them out of my house and living productive lives. But I wanted them to be productive members of society. You know, I didn't want them to be that drain on society that unfortunately we see so much of in today's world. And looking at both of them, they're both well on their way to the right track. So I mean, it would be do what you say you will do. And you know, the other part that I've instilled in both of them, and you could ask either one of them, is a phrase that I personally live by: is you don't quit when you're tired, you quit when you're done. And that's just, you know, there's always one more hour in the day that I can get something done. And that's, especially if you ask my son, because obviously he's older and he's heard me say it more often, that would probably be the one thing that he sticks out in his mind is what I would say.
Well, you could see that in him too. Like I remember when you were on social media more and you had a Facebook and all that. I mean, I remember back in those days, and I mean, it was cool to see. I mean, I saw, or at least it registered more seeing the stuff with Joe. Yeah. Like I remember when he was building the flag cases and stuff, and I mean, just always trying to find something to do, and the kid was doing a lot of different things.
It was funny. It was during COVID. He was a freshman in high school, so he'd ended football season. Baseball was about to start, and you know, we went to spring break. We went hunting on spring break and came back, and the world had come to an end. And we just happened to be sitting around the house one day, and he asked me about when he turned 16, what he was going to drive. And I said, well, I've got a 97 Explorer in my driveway that your grandmother gave to us as an extra vehicle that, you know, at the time was in great shape. You're driving that. And he didn't want that. He wanted a truck. I was like, well, I'm not buying you a truck when I have something for you to drive. You can raise the money, and I will sell the Explorer if I need to, and I'll give you that money. And he kind of disappeared for an hour or two, and he comes back, and he's like, Dad, I play football. I play baseball. I work. I'm in FFA. I go to church. I don't have time to flip burgers. And it's like, son, this is an area where you need to figure it out. And so he went, and he came back, and you know, he found these, you know, wooden American flags that you torch and stain and that kind of thing, and asked me if I thought he could build them. And I was like, yeah, I can show you how to do it. And it took him, between me and him, it took him 18 hours to build the first one. He'd never used a power tool in his life, you know. And I told him, you know, once he came up with it, he's like, well, do you think I can sell them? I was like, come up with what your hard cost is, what material it costs to make it, what your time is worth, and then how much you want to make on top of that, and that's your selling price. So he came up with a price that he learned later he severely undersold himself, and I threw it on Facebook, and at the, you know, in about an hour he had an order for about 55 of those flags. And that kid, to give him credit, I floated him a loan for the material to build the first 5 flags. I went out of town. When I gave him clear instructions on where he needed to be in the construction phase of them, by the time I got back, he far exceeded it. You know, he went to baseball practice, or he went to 2-a-days workouts in the morning over the summer, worked in the garage for 6 or 7 hours, came back and went to baseball practice, and he did that every day during the summer to get there. And the first thing he told me was, I'm raising my price. And I went, you absolutely can once these orders are done. But you gave your word, you committed to a price on this. This is your selling price for these. Yep. And, you know, this started in probably April of 2020. By August, he'd made enough money, and he went out and bought his first truck. He bought an 83 Chevy Square Body. That then he took that work ethic that he put into that, and he put into rebuilding that truck. You know, he did the entire interior. It was an old farm truck. A cotton farmer had it. The interior was demolished. He took it upon himself. I ordered it, the material from LMC and Rock Auto and things like that, but he did the work. You know, he was right out there when we were putting drum brakes on it. He was right out there when we changed the radiator and the alternator, and every bit of it, he touched it. And I think that helped. For me, I was building memories. That's all I cared about. Yeah. You know, I had an old truck when I was a kid, but it didn't start. I couldn't get to work the next day, so it pissed me off. You know, I was always in a bad mood because it didn't work. And
you went full tie.
Yeah. And with him, I took the different perspective. When things didn't go right, we're done for the day. You don't have to drive there. You're 15 years old. You don't get your license for a year. We're going to stop. We're going to take a break. It's going to keep me from losing my temper, so I'm not throwing a wrench at you. And we're going to gain some perspective, and we'll come back out tomorrow, and we'll tackle it again. And to watch him work and grow over that has been phenomenal. He's since blown the motor on it and hopefully learned a valuable lesson about keeping oil in the truck. But he's working now, going to college, and just bought his first truck on his own that he's making payments on. And my daughter is very similar. She's a volleyball player. She's active in FFA. She raises goats for FFA, and she works 2 jobs. She works at 2 different restaurants, and she doesn't have an ounce of fear or quit in her. And to me, that's I know I kind of got long-winded and went off, but any chance I have a chance to talk about how great I think they're doing, I'm going to take that. But
absolutely.
But to me, that's what I think they'll take with them from me is hopefully the work ethic that I instilled in them.
I don't see how they couldn't. So
yeah. So
they seem like both great kids. I've only met Joe, but
teenage daughters drive you insane. But I couldn't ask for a better one. So
I can understand that. Brian, I'll text you in the morning and we'll talk about that.
So
all right. We like to do a fun little segment at the end called Give Us Your 2 cents, since it's common sense. So if there was something maybe that I asked you that we didn't get to go far enough on, or maybe it sparked a thought of something else you wanted to talk about that we didn't quite get to, this is your chance. Or it could just be your 2 cents on whatever. I mean, this is totally, it's like your show now. You get to go with whatever you want here.
That's dangerous. So I'll continue to talk about what we talked about, and I don't think we can ever talk about enough about it, is the mentorship. And I know that's big with you, and I see it in you, is continue those conversations, not only with your people internally, but with everybody that you come across. When you find that somebody that's looking for that mentor, be the mentor for them. It may take 5 minutes, but be that. Jody Spurrell probably still says it today, but when working with her over the years, it was be somebody's why. That's kind of a subliminal thing that I look at when it comes to mentorship. Is I think there's a difference between a manager and a leader, or a manager and a mentor. I'm a horrible manager. I'm absolutely the worst manager you could ever find, because I don't take excuses. I don't take all of the BS that goes along with it. But I am happy to be a leader, to show you leadership and show you a mentor. If you take what I say and put it in and it's successful, the credit's all to you. I don't want any of it. If you don't listen to what I say and you go off and you're not successful, I haven't lost any skin off of my back, and it didn't take any time out of my day to try to help you and teach you something. And so that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely, man. Well, man, I want to thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone and coming to do this with me on the show, man. I really do appreciate it.
I still laugh that I can't imagine anybody really has that much interest in what I have to say, but I had a blast.
I'm going to prove you wrong.
And I'm glad I did it. So.
Yeah. I mean, see, wasn't that bad? It wasn't that hard, right? You were worried if we could even talk for 2 hours and all this and that.
Anybody that knows me knows I have no problem talking. There's no doubt about that.
Right. Yeah, but when the spotlight's on you, I know that's a little different. So, again, thank you, man. Absolutely. I really appreciate it.
No, and it's been fun watching you do this and seeing you grow into this. I can't believe it's been almost 4 years now. So that's
man.
Really cool.
It's been a wild journey. We're going to be changing some things up. It's time to grow a little bit more, and we've got the music podcast. I'm trying so hard to get that wrapped so we can get that and bring that out to you. But you guys, I really appreciate you following along, all the support and love. We will not have a show next week because I'm going to be at TAA, and TAA decided to do all their fun podcast stuff during the trade show, which I was actually going to do this year. So that won't be happening this year.
But make sure you come by both of our booths and say hi when you're there.
Yeah, come by and see both of us. Hell, we usually end up being pretty close together somehow. I can even remember years where we were throwing shit at each other from like across the way. But yeah, please come by and join us. I'll have to let you know next week. Sometime I will make an announcement for the week following. We are trying to do a show. It may be on a different day than normal just because somebody likes to throw wrenches in at the last minute, but Anyways, we'll be back for you guys. We've got a lot of guests lined up. I mean, we are booked out all the way into early June right now with guests, and I'm still trying to find some spots for a couple others that works with their schedule, because when we were doing the 100th episode, we lined up a whole bunch of options and not all of them worked at the time, but now we kind of have a backlog of getting some people on here for you guys. But again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Peace.